Ok, registrazione avviata. Switchiamo anche di lingua.
Grazie, no, volevo solo dire che io poi verso l'1, 1 e un quarto mi devo scollegare, quindi vi lascerò. Mi dispiace, ma oggi, domani, dopodomani ho una serie di riunioni.
Ok. Sì, lo avevo anticipato.
Bene.
Okay, so let's switch in English and restart from the very beginning. So good morning to everybody. I am Antonella Andriani, and I am the Vice President of ADI. That stands for Industrial Design Association. I'm also the Director of the Master Degree in Italian Strategic Design at the Academy of Verona. So this is one of the meeting of the MED that stay for Meet ADI Designers. So we start two Fridays ago. So in every single day we will have a meeting one of the design studios that are members of ADI, trying to discover what's behind the marvelous design project. I would like to thank Giugiaro Architettura, which is the studio of today, in particular Goffredo Baduini, which is the director of this marvelous studio, and Nicolò Serra, which is in charge for the communication. Correct me if I'm wrong, but it should be correct. I would like to introduce to you also Ambrogio Rossari, who is an important design and an ADI member, but who is in charge coordinating the design department committee of ADI. Many thanks to the Academy of Verona for joining this program and for the technical aspects. At the end, many thanks to students that are connected, and thank you for sharing the next couple of hours trying to discover the secrets behind the design project. So I know that there are students from both the master degree and the bachelor degree of the academy. There are students from the Arab American University studying architectural design bachelor degree. And there are students from across other schools all across our country. So many thanks to you. And I would like to let Ambrogio introduce a few words regarding ADI and the MAD program.
Okay. Okay, thank you everybody. Thank you to the students and to the Academy of Verona. ADI, it's a non-profit organization that was founded in 1956 by a group of architects and companies. That's why there are still now in ADI, the department of professionals, of designers, let's say this, of companies, there are other two departments, one of service, one of
distribution.
Distribution. I couldn't remember the word. Distribution, and the general department where that collects all, for instance, universities and journalists, newspapers, and so on. ADI, it's the members of ADI are more than 1,000, of which more than 600 of designers, of course, and it's an organization that defends, protects and develop the whole system of design in Italy. The whole system of design. It's interesting that ADI has in itself has the Compasso d'Oro, that is the most famous award in the world, and the most selective award. It's composed by 300 and more than 350 products or projects, let's say, and the collection in itself, it's composed of more than 2,000 objects, because there are also all the second step of the Compasso d'Oro, that are the honorable mentions. All this it's collected in collected in the collezione, the historical collection of Compasso d'Oro, that is a heritage of the Italian government, and it's protected by the Italian government. To speak about the students, it's very interesting that there is there are the so-called aspirants students, where students can participate to the life of ADI. ADI, let's say, it's connects all the people around Italy and in the world, no? Because ADI has a lot of connection also with other associations in the world. MED, it's an idea of our department, as Antonella said. The word means also fool, as you know, and it's very interesting that we have succeeded to. We will have 15 universities that and that will participate in this idea, and more than 50 meetings of professionals that will describe their life, their way of life, their beginnings, their way of designing the world and everything. So I will stop here, and I'm sorry, I was a little bit confused because I didn't thought it was in English, so I didn't prepare any word. I thought about Italian and not about English. But anyway, I hope I've been clear, and thank you everybody again. I will stay with you another half an hour, and then I will listen very carefully to what Giugiaro Design, Giugiaro Architecture will tell us about the story. Thank you very much.
Thank you to you. At this time, we can stop talking because the true protagonist of this meeting is Giugiaro Architecture. So sorry, Ambrogio, for not reminding you that the meeting was in English. But I would like to underline the fact that Ambrogio is one of the few, let's say, old designers that he's not an architect, because can you mention, Ambrogio, where did you study? When you was a student?
When I was a student many years ago, I studied in design in an experimental school that were in Venice, where I got a diploma in industrial design. My teacher was Mario Bellini, to say one name, and Eduardo Vittoria and Mangiarotti and so on. It was a very qualified school. But then afterward, I went to Chicago to IIT, an Institute of Design that was founded by Mies van der Rohe when he escaped from Germany. and I got a master degree in design. So I was one of the few designers in Italy at that time in the 70s that had a background of design, not of architecture.
Okay, so to talk that and say that your English is perfect, but at this time probably you were quite confused because of the two meetings. So
no, so sorry, but no, my English is not anymore so fluent. But anyway, I was thinking about Italian and not to English.
Okay.
I can remember that academia have a lot of Arabic students.
Okay. So once again, thank you, Goffredo and Goffredo Baduini, and thank you to you. And please talk about your project and your level of madness, in a sense.
Hello, everybody. Hello, I'm Goffredo Baduini. Thank you for the introduction. Thank you for the very interesting presentation of ADI, which is an association of which we are fond of, and we have been part of it, and we have received prizes thanks to ADI. So we are very happy to be here. Yes, I'm going to talk about creativity, as I was mentioning, but I'm also going to talk about what people think hinders creativity, but in reality is what makes our job so interesting and so stimulating. Now let me proceed with the presentation. I hope that everybody can see my screen.
Okay.
Can you confirm you are seeing the screen?
Yes.
Yeah. Yes, we are.
Perfect. So, short presentation of Giugiaro Architettura. Now, what I'm going to do today is I'm going to give you an introduction of what our company is, and then I would like to proceed with an interesting case study of a product that not everybody would think is the fine example of design, but in reality, through experience, we have verified it really is. So, who we are? Well, just a small description of what Giugiaro Architettura is. Giugiaro Architettura is a small architecture and design company, entirely owned by Fabrizio and Giorgetto Giugiaro, who in 2010 made the choice of selling to an important German automotive group the company that Giugiaro had founded in 1968, which is called Ital Design. They sold this big company, which was a company of 1,000 people, which was obviously doing design, but it was also providing services such as engineering, such as prototyping, in particular in the automotive world. But in 2010, they made the choice to sell this company and to continue with a very small group of architects. It was, at the time, 5 architects, only providing architectural services. Let me say, from the creative part to all the technical project development of architecture, so from concept design to detail design to shop drawings to site supervision. But they decided to be more involved in every project of the company, and so they decided to keep this small company called Giugiaro Architettura and to try to make it grow. I had been working for Ital Design. This is who I am. I am today the general manager of Giugiaro Architettura, and I am in the board of directors of GFG Style. I'm going to tell you in a while what we are talking about. But I have been working for Ital Design for 6 years. They decided to ask me to follow them in this adventure of making this very, very small company grow. And I have to say, we really did manage to make it grow. This is a very small portion of the career of Giorgetto Giugiaro and his son Fabrizio. Giorgetto Giugiaro has been elected car designer of the century, and he is always very much associated to car design, but not everybody knows that his activity in everything which is not a car, so in industrial design and architecture, has been very prominent as well. You can see on the bottom right hand corner, the Compasso d'Oro, which we received from the ADI. The last one was with a tractor, of which we are going to talk more recently. Giugiaro has designed more than 500 cars, be them production cars or be them prototypes. He has designed some of the most amazing cars in the world. But what I always like to say is that he has designed cars which then had to be sold. And his companies and his activity has always been provided as a service. So the idea behind Giugiaro was that of creating feasible projects from the beginning, because his goal was that of providing services to companies. So they were certainly car manufacturers, and here you have an example of the car manufacturers with which we have worked. So I think it would be simpler to say to mention the ones we have not worked with than the ones we have worked with. But not many people know that product design within our group has always been very, very important. Now, product design within a company maybe does not give you the same numbers in terms of turnover, but it gives you extremely interesting, adventurous, stimulating projects, because you are always working with a different technology, a different goal, different budgets, different companies. So you can see here, starting from the Nikon, which was the first industrial design object Giugiaro worked around, to trains, to watches, to basketballs, to architecture, and to coffee machines. Everything can be styled, everything can be designed. How do we do this? We do this with two companies. The first one, Giugiaro Architettura, the company I am managing, has two different divisions today. I was telling you about the slow start from a small group of individuals working around architectural projects. Well, then we have to say things got more and more successful. We saw that our projects were quality level projects. They were projects that people liked. Were projects that the companies working with us were very satisfied of. So clients came storming to our company, not only for architecture, but many of the industrial design and product design companies we had worked with in the past, and even new ones, still wanted to have Giorgetto Giugiaro, Fabrizio Giugiaro, maybe our group, myself, with them again. So in 2015, we refounded a division of industrial design. And within this the division of industrial design, we created an important subdivision taking transportation design, which today is one of our core businesses. So let's say that Giugiaro Architettura, with its team of architecture, follows all the steps in architectural projects. It follows all the design phases in industrial design and transportation projects. But it is inevitable that the DNA of the Giugiaro family still lies also in car design. So in 2006, the Giugiaro family decided to create a small company, today controlled by Giugiaro Architettura, called GFG Style. GFG Style is the car design company of the Giugiaros. We cannot have the name Giugiaro on automobiles anymore, on vehicles anymore. So GFG Style is still operating with the Giugiaros as chief designers, as inspirers of creativity and what we always call feasible creativity. So this is who we are. What we do, well, here are some payoffs of what we do. What we always do, and this is something that designers always need to focus on, we try to put our visions on paper. So designers are creative, they are mindful, they are visionaries, they are dreamers, but those visions always need to be put on paper. How do we do this? With sketches. All of you has done this before, but the sketching part is always the way of giving a first life to your visions. Now, this, for example, is the interior of a 3-seat car, which was somehow inspired by fighter jets. This is a sketch of one of our designers. And what we do, and this you'll see in my presentation, is something that I consider vital. My role inside the company is that of making sure that the company is going well. This for me means having the client satisfied. It means selling our services continuously and giving our company that continuous quality that our clients require. How do we do this? Yes, we have to be creative, but we need to consider reality. So all of you, I imagine, is learning how to work with 3D modeling. 3D modeling today is very, very important when you work with companies because it gives you the, let me say, the certification of your visions. So with a 3D, you manage to help your clients make sure that what you are giving them is real. What you are giving them is feasible. What you are giving them is going to put them in the condition of doing something that will work. So this is what we do. We always say feasible creativity, and I would also like to say creative feasibility. So what you do with your design services, with your sketching, and then your 3D, as we said, needs to be creative. It needs to be feasible. It's vital. I always say that it's vital for design to be working around constraints. The more constraints your clients give you, the more it's going to be difficult, the more it's going to be challenging. And if you will manage to create a great design working around the constraints that you have, then you're very probably going to be successful. We study every detail. It's very important also when you are working with other teams, other groups. And then one thing that our company, at least this has always been a way of working that Italian companies have had. The milling and the manual modeling is a traditional way of working, which has evolved over the years, but which never has to be lost in my perception. So over the years, we have always seen that design needs to be verified. So obviously today we are always moving forward in terms of softwares, in terms of virtual capability, in terms of virtual design. Yes, it's vital. Yes, it's important. Yes, it gives you the possibility of shortening processes. It gives you the possibility of saving time, saving money, but it is never going to give you that feeling which a physical model is going to give you. Now, in this case, we see a car, but it can be a coffee machine. It can be a watch. It can be a robot. It can be a seat. It can be the interior of a train. We always say that verifying your design with a physical model is very important because the eye is going to mix with the capabilities, it's going to mix with the genius. What you are seeing here, for example, is a styrofoam model of a car we designed in 2017. Styrofoam is one of the materials that I think were very much developed and very much pushed by our company in the past. Not everybody uses styrofoam to make models. People use clay, people use different types of materials. In this case, we use styrofoam because styrofoam is a very easy to model material with milling machines or also by hand. But once you have milled that styrofoam model, it gives you the possibility of modifying this by hand with plaster, which is white. And in the end, it gives you the possibility of looking at this model and seeing, yeah, look, the proportions work. Now the styling is really finalized. And then you can go ahead, you see all those dots on the model. That is for the dot cloud to go ahead with reverse engineering into and transforming this into the finalized 3Ds. This, for example, is a final model. In this case, it's a prototype. This is a prototype of a tractor. So design is not only getting your hands dirty with pencils, it's also getting your hands dirty with materials to prove your design. Then obviously we go ahead and we present the results of our operations in events. Unfortunately, the world today is not letting us do this anymore, but I am very optimistic that soon we will go back to normal. Well, I told you about this, how we are organized in Giugiaro Architettura. We have an architecture division and an industrial design division, tackling different phases of the project, because the architecture division, it is in architecture, it's important for you to follow a project from the beginning all the way to site supervision and site construction. In industrial design, if you have a very good competence in not only styling, but materials, economics, 3D development, then you can really pass this on to a company which can then go ahead with industrialization, possibly with your supervision. So let's say that our architecture division follows the project from A to Z. The industrial design division follows the project from the beginning to the moment in which we pass our 3D models to the engineers within our clients' companies. Some of the things that we did in industrial design, you see, we develop any type of project. This is the initial sketch of a boat lever for a control lever that we designed recently. This is a coffee machine. This is the remake of a historic coffee machine called the Brasilia Excelsior, which had been developed in the 70s. Now, there's a lot of doing things with this. They call it resto mod in car design, but with a revisitation of traditional projects, and this is one fine example. Obviously, we have been designing furniture, which in our case is always, it's really on the line between the architecture division and the industrial design division. So it's one of those few products which in our case could be developed by both divisions, because our divisions have specific architects, have specific industrial designers, and they have specific car designers. There is contamination sometimes, but not always. Train design, we are very much involved in providing design services to companies who request it. This is the Frecciarossa. This is ETR 500. This has been a important work for us because it's been the first high-speed 300 km/h train in the Italian railroads. We have developed a complete revamping project of this train. A train design is difficult because of the age of a train. A train has to last 30 years, and in these 30 years, it probably undergoes one refurbishment. So when you design, you always need to think ahead. You always need to think about your design still being modern and still being actual 30 years from now, which is very difficult. Yes, maybe 15 because you have a refurbishment. But you wouldn't say this is a 25-year-old train, for example. This is the tram, one of the recent projects we did for Hitachi, which is one of our main clients. This is the tram for Turin. And this was the model we had done for the initial concept of that tram. This is a 1:8 scale model. But we also developed the 1:1 scale of that tram. We designed turnstiles for the Italian train stations. Now, I'm giving you all these examples to make you understand how polyedric a designer must be. You are passing from a coffee machine to turnstiles. Now, just imagine how many people will have to pass through these turnstiles, through these speed gates. So you need to think about functionality within I mean, inside those speed gates are a system of technologies which allow emergency sounds, credit card ticketing. So there's a lot inside there, but it's always interesting for a service company like ours to provide different services. Now here, you look at our boat. This is a yacht. This is an 80-meter yacht we had designed some time ago. So it's this might be a 80 million euro boat, while before you were talking about a speed gate, which probably the Italian railroad is going to want to pay they want to spend not very much on that turnstile because they have to buy so many for all the various stations in Italy. These are architectural projects. We have been working a lot in retail stores around stations in Italy. This is the Roma Termini, the station from Rome. And then you see from here, you pass from shops in a historic gallery of a train station in Italy with 200 million people passing through pre-COVID that station. And then we go on to a villa in the mountains. This is in Cervinia, with all of the problems of listing, because this was a villa from the 1930s, which was listed. So it had a series of protections from the Accademia delle Belle, from the Belle Arti, from the Istituto Belle Arti, so the Beaux-Arts of the municipality. But we wanted this, for example, this client wanted like a binocular in front of the Matterhorn, which is the mountain which is positioned here. So we had to find a solution to integrate a modern piece of architecture to a traditional mountain architecture. So you would never say that this has been developed by the same architects who then developed this, which is a digital factory for Italgas. So we are passing from a private owner of his own villa to the leading gas company in Italy, trying to develop its own offices in a different way, focused on co-working and digital working. And then you pass to a stadium. Now, if there is anybody who is a fan of Juventus, which is not me, but Nicolò, who is here in front of me, well, we developed the whole styling of the stadium. So this should be an architecture project, which we developed as a styling project, because in the end here, we didn't do the architecture. We did the shape. We did the analysis of colors and how these could be played around it. So basically, this is an industrial design work developed for architecture, because obviously a stadium is an immense project with a series of different players. And then we go to offices. This, once again, is for Italgas. This is a more traditional way of developing offices. This is an office for all around it, it's around 300 people. But you see, it's much different than the digital factory, which we saw before, because these are the operational offices, the traditional offices. And then we move on to a station. This is a project for metro stations in Riyadh, so in Saudi Arabia, because one of the other things I want to say is that a designer needs to be international. Now, it's very nice to hear that we have people from all around the world during my presentation. It's vital, because good or bad, as we want to intend it, today design must be international. And you guys need to learn that you will need to adapt the services you are giving, that you are providing to the different parts of the world for which you are working. I remember when I first started working in Ital Design as a business development manager, it was a disaster for me, because my boss, the first thing he said is, oh, okay, you're here from 2 weeks, go to China and you're going to meet a train company. Let's see if you're going to come back with some work. And obviously I went to China and I was all happy. I had never been to China. I had never been to Asia. So I start meeting this totally different culture from ours. And one of the things that these clients ask me is, yes, but we want traditional Chinese elements in the work you're going to do. Well, I came back, I said, yes, of course, we're going to do it, because I had to sell this work. And we came back, and I was talking to the designers, and they said, yeah, give me some more hints. And I had no idea I mean, what did we have to do? Design a pagoda? I mean, what were we supposed to do? And so this is very important, because what you're seeing here, this is a metro station in Riyadh, in Saudi Arabia, built with glass, extremely difficult in that sense. And then what we have here is something developed around the station from Milano, which is totally different, because it's a historic station with a very specific architecture, a beautiful, beautiful piece of work, which had a particular characteristic, that of having the tracks not at ground level. So what they had is, this was a master plan, because the two streets adjacent to the station, Via Ferrante Porti and Via San Martini, have a series of docks belonging to the Italian railroads. And what they wanted was to use these and completely change the characteristic of that area, which today is very degraded. So we built a master plan around this, but it was completely different than what we had to do in Riyadh, in the middle of the desert and of a growing city. And then you have to do something like this. They asked you for shops in what is called the Galleria delle Carrozze, in the Milan Central Station. And they asked you for permanent structures in glass and steel, which was our idea, to integrate and harmonize with the existing architecture. So you see how polyedric you have to be, and then you have to develop a new university, and maybe it will occur to you to be working with an architectural hero who is called Sir Norman Foster, to develop the architecture of the University of Law and Social Sciences here in our city, in Turin. So wonderful experience. And then once again, you have to work in a train station and design something different for a train lounge. Or you have to work in Russia to develop a catalyst plant in the middle of Siberia. So it has always been our characteristic of being polyedric, of being able to work at 360 degrees on the design and architectural project that a client will come to give us. So honestly, we are very much in a difficult position to reply to questions such as, give it your styling. No, what we will do is we will tailor our styling around your requests. And this is vital to understand for a designer. Now, we're passing on to car design, which I always say is very iconic. It's very nice. There is probably, I don't know, but one of the most iconic objects in the history of the world is certainly a car, and it's a similar work. We have always tried to do something feasible from the start. Many times this has been matched with, I was expecting more. But what happens is, when you do your creativity and you do it following what's inside, following the constraints that are being given to you technically, economically, in terms of materials, then you have to work around those constraints, and you are sure that your creativity in the end will match the initial studies. This is very important, because if we do something which is very creative in the beginning, we did this incredible sketch, and then in the end, what the client is going to have to produce is totally different and has nothing to do with the language you have given it, you didn't reach your goal. These are initial manual sketches of a car, which could give you the ideas. This is how we then transform it into a 3D rendering, so with all the styling 3Ds that there are under it. Then we go ahead with modeling it's always important, as I said, to have something that you can touch. Now, this is a tractor. You see how different it is from this incredible supercar, but we have to do both. This, for example, is a motorbike. A motorbike which has to be iconic, fascinating, but reminiscent also of the past because of the logo that you see on its tank. And then we pass to a tractor. Why does a tractor have to avoid the incredible design services that talents such as all of you can provide? It's very important. And it's very important also for companies, because they will build a marketing case around styling. They will manage to differentiate products which maybe underneath are absolutely the same. And then obviously we're talking about tractors, then yes, the supercar is fascinating. In terms of GFG style, we were born in 2016. One of the ways, and we have never been very good at promoting our services. One of the things that we always used to do, and it was a tradition from the times we had Ital Design, was to unveil a series of prototypes at the Geneva Auto Show, which is probably for designers the most important event in the world. This was the first car that GFG unveiled. It was a supercar with a battery, actually it was electrical, but it had two turbines which acted as a range extender for the electric motors. It had a very unique way of entering. It had 3 seats. With a central driving position, which was positioned more forward than the other 2 seats. And basically it had all of the hood moving to the back to allow better access to the central drive. Then in 2018, we unveiled a different car. This was the car that celebrated the 80th anniversary of Giugiaro, which Giugiaro totally styled for himself. Now, I want to just focus on one thing. Besides the proportions and the good looks and the styling, there is a lot of study on function on such a vehicle. What you see above the belt line of this car is a bubble which slides on the front hood of the car, creating an opening to allow better access to the interior of the vehicle. Giorgetto was celebrating his 80th birthday, and he was saying, yes, I'm getting older, because in reality he is younger than myself, but in terms of what his ID says, he's getting older. And he says, yeah, an SUV is very comfortable, but it's a little bit more bulky and less good looking than a sports car. But a sports car is very difficult in terms of accessibility, because it's very difficult to get in. So what do? Is I eliminate the A pillar, which is the front pillar of the car. I have this bubble slide onto the hood. I have everything underneath the belt line opening traditionally, and I can get in with a much better, easier access. And in terms of the rear door, I have this gull wing opening, and this will allow me to get in. But this, you don't see it from the picture, but this brings with it a whole more thinking. For example, traditional vehicles, traditional cars have the side glasses sliding into the door. If you eliminate the side glasses, that door is going to become a huge object holder. Now, not everybody thinks about this, but an object holder is something important inside a car. It's going to give you the possibility of storing your bottles of water, your wallet, your documents, whatever. The behind the seats, you don't see it from here, but there is a jacket holder, a series of jacket holders where you can put your jackets and still have them hanging. So there is a lot more to styling behind this, and it kept going in this way. For example, in the following year, in 2019, we unveiled this car, which was based on a Chinese platform, because GFG, I was talking to you about the international positioning of your work. We as car designers started working more and more in China. We opened a company in China, actually. And the partners we had were developing a Chinese car with a very, very nice chassis, a very nice platform. So we used this platform to create this car, which has, I won't go into details, but basically it has technically very innovative system of suspensions which can rise and come down, allowing it to be a supercar on road, but also to go off-road, for example, on the dunes. So we called it Hyper SUV. Then we unveiled this based on the same platform in 2020, and it had been done for the country of Saudi Arabia for an event called Riyadh 2030. And it was important because one day, possibly in Saudi Arabia, they're going to produce this car. But Saudi Arabia also means dunes. So the car was also developed in an off-road raid version. And then, just to finish off with GFG, we never forget tradition. One of the cars we unveiled last year was based on a historic name in the automobile world in Italy called Bandini. Not Lorenzo Bandini, the Formula One driver, but Bandini, the producer, was a very, very small competition car producer from Tuscany in between the 60s and the 70s. And his nephew decided to make this tradition relive. And we designed this barchetta with the brand Bandini, unveiled last year at the Geneva Auto Show. But now, let's go a little bit more into design stories. I'll finish off the presentation with this case study. I would like to show you how basically the different steps of our process work. I will use a very strange thing to design, and I think you understood it. It's a tractor. It's an agricultural machine. In particular, it's an agricultural machine very useful in Italy and France, and in Italy we are very fond of this because it's an agricultural machine. It's a tractor which goes into vineyards. Now, wine is important in Italy. Wine is important in France. Wine is important in Spain, many different countries. But Italy has a very long tradition in wine, but the vineyards are very narrow. So you're going to have an object which is very narrow, tall, and ugly. One of our historical clients is Same Doisfar. Same Doisfar is the fourth biggest agricultural machinery group in the world. They are extremely an excellent company based in Bergamo. They are actually one of the few Italian companies which has bought a German company, because recently the opposite generally happens. They bought a company called Doisfar, we were requested 3 years ago, I would say, to design a tractor called Frutteto. Now, Frutteto is their tractor which goes into vineyards. Not only, it's one of their leading products. So the goals were to create something which was beautiful, which was efficient, but especially which could be based on exactly the same package and technical package which they had. You're going to understand when you start working that one of the most important aspects of a company, of a production company, is investment. Now, the more they save in terms of investment, the better it is, because the more margins they're going to have if they manage to sell their products. This means carryover parts. Carryover parts are those elements which a producer, for example, already have. Now, it can be an engine, but it could be smaller parts. It can be a bonnet. It could be a small plastic decorative element. It could be lights. It can be one specific grill. It could be anything. So if you add up all of those elements and you consider them as carryover parts, so you are keeping those carryover parts from a product that they are already selling, you're going to manage to make them save money. But then the task that they give a design company is to make things look completely different. Now, the first sketches we did, in this case, we were working for their Italian brand, which is called Same. It has to be dynamic. They generally give the German product a more sturdy, a more angled, a more German aspect, while the Italian version is a little bit more sporty, a little bit softer, a little bit, I don't want to say sophisticated because it's not sophisticated, it's smoother in terms of design. It's a little bit friendlier in terms of design. Now, these were the initial sketches. We made a lot. We made 10, 15 different proposals for the initial sketch of this bonnet because the cabin would have been developed in a following phase, and we did that 2 years after. But the idea was to keep what they had underneath and give it a dress. Now, what did they have underneath was this. So just imagine these are the constraints that you are going to have when they tell you, give me an aspect for your tractor. This immediately hinders your creativity because you are not going to be able to go beyond this point. You're not going to be able to go beyond this point. So this curve, in a certain way, is given. Yes, but I want to give it a more important aspect. I want to raise this. Ah, okay, you want to raise this. But what is going to happen? What is going to happen is that a farmer who is positioned right here, I hope you see my cursor, is going to need to have a point of view which is as best as possible. So everything you take away from his view in front of the tractor is going to be efficiency from his work that you are taking away. So he's going to need to have the best point of view he can from that cabin. Oh, okay, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to slant my nose as much as possible. Ah, yeah. But what happens is that in front of this tractor, you are going to have machinery. You are going to have machinery which is going to allow you to pick up hay. You're going to have machinery which is going to be a series of weights. Now, this machinery possibly is going to lift. So this dimension also is not going to have the possibility of moving it too much. So you immediately see that when before I was saying design is working around constraints, this is what I'm saying. If we did all of this and the sketch you were seeing here without knowing what is underneath, then probably we would have given this object a style which then could not be developed. Because remember, Giorgetto Giugiaro always taught me, style is made of details. We are judged as being more or less beautiful from the distance of our eyes, from some millimeters of, I have a big nose. Maybe if I had 2 millimeters less, I would be more good looking, but I have it. And it's those 2 millimeters which make a difference from the dimensions of our mouth, from the proportions of our body. So a subtle difference gives you a totally different perception of your styling. What we did is we came out with something like this. So we immediately started developing renderings based on those constraints which were technical that were given to us. Yes, but other constraints came out. For example, what you see here is a metal grill. Now, that metal grill can only be shaped in a certain way, because otherwise it's not going to be to follow the shaping that you are giving to you. But not only, the more you model it, the more you shape it, the more it's going to cost. Now, this is an object which needs to have a low cost because they need to sell a lot, and that cost makes a difference. Now, how about this under part here? Are we going to keep the under part of the old tractor or not? So these decisions need to be made with the company. And if you need to keep that lower part is going to influence the design you do on the upper part. So all of these elements will be decided with the company and are the result of a series of analyses such as costs from the company, because their margin is going to be totally different, also based on the work that you designers are going to do. So your job is going to be doing something iconic, beautiful, marketable, sellable, that everybody immediately recognizes, with an incredible series of constraints. And that's the difficult part. Making something beautiful and good looking is not the difficult part. That's the easy part. It's working around the constraints that they give you that is the difficult part. As you see from this sketch to the transposition into a 3D, a series of proportions changed. But not only the proportions, a series of parts in the end changed, because with the analysis of that sketch, the engineering department of our client analyzed that probably that part, styled in the way we had styled it, would cost too much. So they would immediately say, just get the part that I had before. And then what happens is, you know what happens? You are the designer, so it's your problem to make that part match with the others. And that's what becomes difficult. So this is where 3D modeling really comes into help, because the 3D modeling, now you're only seeing a layer of this 3D, but what is underneath is all this. So with this 3D, you're getting to giving the engineers something which they know is going to be working. Then they're going to do thermal tests, they're going to do all sorts of different tests on that bonnet. But with a 3D, you really get to understand that every point, and I mean every point in space of that styling that you gave is going to work, and how it's going to work. Now, what happens is, at that point, a company is going to say, I like it, okay, but I have 3 different brands. I have Same, but I have Lamborghini tractors, and I have Deutz-Fahr. Now, I want to do that same bonnet on the 3 different brands, but it needs to be differentiated, because we need to have the same platform with 3 different aspects and 3 different types of level. And what happens is this. Now, you see that this is a narrow, I was saying, this tractor really needs to go into spaces which are very, very, very narrow. So in the end, it's that bonnet which gives it the recognizability. Now you see that from the Deutz-Fahr, which is the green tractor, to the Same, that front part is totally different. But if you look at the side panels, they are the same. This is their economizing, their modularity. And then it's you who is going to have to be making that difference to make it look like 2 different machines. And this is very, very important. They share the same base, the same lights, but the front end is totally different. How do you verify your styling? Not always only with a monitor, but it's always very important to do the milling. So the milling is initial. Now, in this case, it was a medium density material which we milled. And then you're going to get to paint it, and you're going to get to have a final model which is going to be exactly style-wise the vehicle that is going to come out. And then what happens is you're going to get the most beautiful part of all your job, because it's the most beautiful part of all your job, is when your object is going to be unveiled at the show. Because in that case, you see the result of your work. You see the results of your nights thinking about what you can do to make things look nice and to satisfy your client and to satisfy your goals, because then the goals are shared. And this is certainly the most beautiful moment that a designer can have. When his dreams, the visions, I was talking to you when I started this presentation by saying, put your visions on paper. Well, when those visions come out, and this is the result, let me go back to our slide, our slide from the sketches. This was the initial sketch, and this was the final result. Now, I think that it's very important to get from that step to this step with minor differences. This is done only by styling around constraints with a cooperative, collaborative approach with the engineers who are working with you. Why am I saying all of this? Because Progetto Giugiaro started his career as a designer, but one of the things he immediately said in 1968 when he founded Ital Design is, I need an associate who is going to make sure that the styling I give to those cars is going to be feasible. So immediately he found an associate as an engineer associate, was called Aldo Mantovani, and that has made the difference in making his story so successful in terms of the services provided to companies. And this is the end of my presentation. I hope it wasn't too long. I hope everything was clear, and I'm open to any type of question.
Yeah, thank you for your presentation, and it was amazing in terms of how you spread from the basketball to obviously the cars and trains and stations and so on. I don't know if the students have some questions while they are figuring out their questions. I have one question for you, because we've been talking about method. What about time? How long project lasts in time? Because once again, students think that you draw something and the day after everything is done. So
also
time,
clients.
yeah, that's the point. We know it. So yes, and on that point, I have another question. How can you let the clients follow you in terms of project phases? How do you demonstrate how the process is going on? Trying to let them figure out that you're not just drawing on piece of papers and so on.
In response to the first question, the timing, well, the timing is never enough for sure, but what we do is really, it depends on what the clients are asking you. I said we are a service company, so maybe a client only wants, an initial sketch phase, which we tend not to do as much as possible, because we always try to verify the sketching of 3Ds, because it's very important also for us, because in the end, what comes out maybe might bear our name. So it's important for us to make it very similar to what we intend. Let's say that if that work for the tractor, excluding the model, could have taken, let me say, 2-3 weeks for the sketching phase and other 3 weeks for the modeling phase. Then it depends on how many proposals you are going to do, how many choices they are going to do. But if you go through sketching and modeling, it's never less than a month and a half, because there is a lot of work. Then obviously, maybe you have other works at the same time. So luckily we have more than 40-45 projects per year. So we are always working on more than one project. But it's important for a designer to take his time. Our chief designer is always battling with me because he wants more time. And also for me, managing a company, it's important to understand this, because clients are always going to ask you things from one day to the other. They don't understand that even if you work 12 hours a day, I mean, it's not that if you tell them you need 3 weeks, it's because you want to go out and have an ice cream. It's because you want to have the time to do that properly. And honestly, the best projects that we ever did are those in which we had a little bit more time. But unfortunately, in the real world, this never happens. For example, when you design a train, you are subject to the fact that your client is probably tendering that train. So he has specific dates in which you have to deliver. So the timings are something important, but it's difficult to work with clients because they tend to have things in the least time possible. And one of the locks, I mean, one of the important aspects that we have as a company is working with structured companies, because they generally have teams, and those teams know what you're doing. So they also generally know that you need some time to do things. I remember when we were working with private entrepreneurs who were throwing themselves into sectors which were new to them. It was very difficult for us to understand the process of our work. And here I'm coming to your second question, because it's hard. I remember when I was traveling in countries which had not developed design as much as we have, for example, in Europe, it was very difficult to understand that behind this, for example, there is a lot of work. It's not just a drawing. It's a real project of how each component is designed and how each component needs to work together in a system of components, and how we have achieved, understood the goals and the necessities that there are behind it. So it's very, very, very difficult. We have a client which is a structured company, and we have started working with them, and I tried to tell them in any way that they needed, yes, to have the creativity coming from sketches, but they needed us to have that creativity developed with 3D studies so that they could be sure of that creativity. They were not understanding it. They wanted to do the 3Ds on their own, forgetting that a sketch is a sketch. Then a sketch has its limits. 3D gives you a more precise approach to what is going to become your engineer. They did it by themselves. They understood that they wasted so much time in trying to understand what our sketch wanted to represent that they are probably not going to do it again. So it's really hard for me to make certain clients understand what there is behind this. And if I have to say, I don't see any solution. I think for ages, it's going to be one of our big problems, big problems, because then the only way you could have is bringing that client and having him in your company, sit next to a designer and stay there for a month. And maybe after that, he would say, they were right.
Okay. Yeah, obviously we have to fight to let clients recognize what's behind the project. So I agree with you that there are sectors that are familiar with the design process and design thinking, and there are others that are not. So it's a matter of learning by doing, and let clients learning what's going on. Come on, students, do you have questions? If the point, because I know that there are brilliant students that are not so familiar with English, so if you want to write your question in the chat, maybe we can translate the question for you. Don't be shy. You're here to learn, so you can make silly question. Okay, Zampieri Giulia, I have one question. If you can switch on your, okay.
Hi, good morning, first of all. Thank you very much for your really dynamic presentation. Really was amazing, so interesting.
Thank you.
And then,
No, first of all, where are you, Giulia?
okay, yeah, I'm attending Erasmus studio in Belgium. No, yeah.
Okay. So we are spreading, we are spread across the world. And before I forgot to mention that there are also a few Chinese students drawing pagodas and something like that.
Good, good. I used to go to China 5-6 times a year, and now I really miss it.
Okay. Yeah, that's the case also for me. So Giulia, sorry for interrupting you. Go ahead.
Oh, no, it's okay. Yes, my question is about how important is the relationship with customers, and also how important is the teamwork for you. And the last one is also because I was wondering how important also is the name of each product.
Okay.
I'll try to remember the three.
Yeah, sorry.
Relationship with the client is vital.
Okay.
But you only achieve, I mean, you can be the best business manager of the world, but if you give the client a crappy work, yes, maybe then you can go out for a glass of wine, but he's not going to give you work again. So the relationship with the client is very important. Myself, I come from a business development start, and I have always liked. It's not something that I want to do. It's something that I like, having a relationship with people. This period is very difficult because of that. And it's very important, but you need to give them quality work. And I have to say, I started working when I was in 2000. Well, I started working when I was still in university, but let's say officially when I finished university, I started working in 2003. And I have to say the quality that today our designers offer is amazing. And I have to say, especially in that part of having them in touch directly with the client's engineers, because in the end, yes, the owner of the company is who is going to give you the work, etc. But it's his engineers, it's his teams who are going to validate that. And you are going to, if you manage to help them in their processes of engineering feasibility studies by shortening them and making them spend less money, that's where you're going to make the difference. So it is vital. And to do this, you need to have one of the characteristics that the best entrepreneurs have, which is that of choosing a good team. A good team means everything in a company. A good team is not only a team of people who are capable to design, but it's a team of people who are capable of working together, because project development is a teamwork. It's a good team means people who under pressure, because you're going to have a lot of pressure, can send themselves to hell, but then get back to being a team 2 days later. I mean, Giorgetto Giugiaro and Fabrizio Giugiaro, besides being father and son, have always been a team. I have seen impressive, amazing fights on work, on choices of work between the two. 5 minutes later, they were a team again. This is what we have to learn. So relationship with the client, vital, but you need quality. Teamwork, vital. The last question was?
About the name, how important is, yeah.
This is a difficult field because the name is very important. Very, very, very important. I think today it's a little bit less important than it was in the past, because styling centers have been developed, and those styling centers need outsourcing, so they are going to come to you for outsourcing. But at the same time, they are not so keen of saying that they didn't do the work, which is, in the end, it's a big investment, so it's nice. I think today the name is not so important on the signature of a specific product coming out, but certainly, from our perspective, business-wise, if Nicolò needs to get a meeting, if he calls and says, I am Giugiaro Architettura, I am GFG, it's much more probable that he is going to get that meeting than if you are not. So I think today that is the big importance of a name. It's not in the project. If you if you have a name, but you don't do quality,
Doesn't matter.
it's useless.
Yeah.
But today, companies such as ours, we are a small design company. We are a small one. But to get appointments, it's important for us to say we are Giugiaro.
Okay. Thank you.
Yes, if I understand properly, probably the question was also referring to the naming of products. How you decide the name of products, because
Yeah.
something which is important probably is not so crucial for you working in team, because I mean, what is clearly defined is the fact that you are working on huge project. That's not always the case. I mean, also important students, important studios work with family-based company. That's not your case, because you have been working for fancy and huge companies. So I don't know if yourself are defining the name of products. That's the case in other cases.
No, and we don't want to, because it's very, very difficult. But it's very important. But just imagine, I give you this example. We, in 2011, when we were in Ital Design, we designed a canister, an oil canister, I have it there somewhere, for Gazprom. They asked us to do the name, and we didn't want to. So they hired an important naming company. The naming company did more than 700 names for that oil canister. I don't want to do that. Very difficult. It's very difficult, but it's important.
Yeah.
We don't do it anyway.
Okay. Yes,
Okay.
but that gives you the flavor, how important and how complicated it is. So 700 is not just a couple of possibilities. So the naming is an important part of the process. In huge project, usually there are specific and dedicated studios doing that.
They generally have their marketing divisions go ahead with the namings. In our case.
As an example, I remember the Nova car that in Spain was not so successful, because in Spanish it becomes Nova, which means it's not working properly. Are there other questions? Maybe from the Arabians? Let me check who's there. Rawad. Maha. Do you have any question?
Hi, nice to meet you.
Hello.
Everyone. Hi. I have a question. I can that many make many steps in many direction. So interior design, architecture, design products. So my question: how made this link between many direction in design?
Okay. Yes. How do you manage moving from architecture to cars to stations and so on? Because
we have three separate divisions. So basically, we have two divisions and a different company. So car design is managed by a company which has its own set of car designers. The other company, which is Giugiaro Architettura, which is the main company, has two divisions. In the architecture division, they are all architects. In the industrial design division, they are all designers. Now, this means that generally each takes care of his project, but there may be occasions in which you need some contamination. So why not sometimes have a car designer help an industrial designer, or an industrial designer help an architect? Most generally, luckily, we are always working. We have plenty of work, so we don't have many occasions of conceptualizing new things on our own. Actually, we don't have them, which would be nice once in a while, you know. But in those occasions, you can contaminate a little bit more. But for example, I was giving you the example of furniture. Furniture is a sector in which you could have designers or architects work together indistinctively. So that is one of the fine examples. That I showed you a piece of furniture that we did in the past that was for Febal. So it was a medium range of furniture. In that case, it was done by a designer. There are a series of different pieces of furniture that we did, for example, for private houses, which were all designed by architects. So that is a world in the middle. But for the rest, we operate having three specific sets of designers and architects.
Okay. Thank you, Maha. Other questions? I do have a question for you. What's your relationship with the sustainability, which is getting more and more, not only from a car point of view, but generally speaking? And the second big question, I know that we are short in time, but I'm doing it in any case. What are the changes that COVID introduced, and how the way you work changed since the COVID appears?
In terms of sustainability, well, as you were saying before, we work with very big groups in terms of clients. So in terms of what we do in the services provided, we are very much linked to what they are looking at. So be it a change of materials, be it a change of strategy, be it a new investment in more eco-friendly technologies, we are very much linked to them. So in architecture, we have a series of let me say, characteristics, lead results, etc., lead analyses, which we try to use, focusing on more eco-friendly architectures. In terms of industrial design, we are very much bonded to them. So if we can, we try to be as eco-friendly as possible. Then obviously we are related to their choices. The second question is, well, it's changed very much. I am I am very optimistic for the future, and I hope that we will manage to at least go back in a good way, because well, certainly working from home for a lot of our designers, we had difficulties because of COVID. I think it's the flexibility of work is very much welcome. Illuminated companies had it before COVID, so it's not that COVID changed the idea of illuminated companies in terms of work flexibility. Everybody working from home is difficult because, as I was saying before, a project is working together. So we have a chief designer and we have a lead architect. They are managing their team from home. Yes, in terms of architects, they are going to sites, which is much better, but they did a fantastic job in doing this. I would never have imagined that people could cope with this. You know, people who have kids, people who have husbands at home in meeting, wives at homes in meetings. It's been very difficult. I hope we will a little bit go back to the past, because managing a project all together was much easier. The nature of our work helped us, because in the end, you don't have anything physical to deliver. You are developing a project, so you could still do it by monitor. But I think even the teamwork is more difficult. For the business development, it's even more difficult, because that famous, was it Julia who did the question before? The relationship with the client is not that relationship anymore, because you are not discussing things together and touching them with your hands. You are discussing them via a monitor. I have meetings every day by monitor, by video. And in certain cases, you need 3 video meetings to define something that you would have defined in 10 minutes by meeting yourself. But it has its advantages, certainly in company management. Project development is not a one-man show. It's a teamwork. So it's if we can go back to what we had before a little bit, it would be useful. We need to learn from what has happened. We need to learn that if we want flexibility, we can, but we need to perceive the difficulties that this can bring. So that's my idea.
Yes, I've been talking also to other studios, and in my experience, I mean, there are some phases that benefit from the COVID pushing. For example, the meeting, because when you are working in an international way, you have to move across the world. So if we can have a meeting on the video, it's easier, because I mean, I don't need to move from Milan and so on. There are other phases, for example,
but we did that before.
Models. Yeah.
But we did that before as well. I mean, 90% of our work with GFG was in Asia. We could not move to Tokyo or to Shanghai every day. So we would have video meetings. But then once every month or every 2 months, we would have physical meetings. And those physical meetings were worth 10 video meetings. So I think so too. I think we can save time by video meetings, but we cannot have only video meetings. I've heard people saying, we won't need offices anymore. No, we will need offices. Maybe in a different way, but for me, I think, as I said, I think this has explained to us that if we want, we can. So some of those physical meetings can be substituted by video meetings, but other things, with the touch, the possibility of having this piece of paper and looking at it, or that monitor and looking at it and discussing, and let me call that technician and he can tell me if no, but wait, no, that guy is another one. Saves time.
Yeah, and the end you cannot have a campaign, so the physical. I mean, I don't like to drink, so you can imagine when I have lots of campaign being the important person.
For example, besides campaign, imagine you are working on, I don't know, the interior of an airplane for Boeing, and you can't go to the US. So you have that video meeting, possibly with 3-4 people of their engineering department. But then one of the things that comes out from that meeting is I don't know, you, for that specific profile, the guys who are in the video meeting aren't there, and you need to find them. You're going to stop that video meeting and set up another video meeting, which is going to be postponed. If you are there, it's very probable that those guys are going to go fetch that guy in that specific area, bring him there. He's going to look at what you say and say, no, it's not worth it doesn't work that way, and he's going to move away. So we miss that a lot. But in the end, I think design companies were much luckier than other profiles in this tragedy, because it's been a tragedy.
Yeah, I definitely with you. Before I saw Glafira that opened the camera. Glafira, should I intend that you have a question? No. Hello, students. Are you still there? Okay, so I'm making questions for you instead of students. What are the skills that you take in consideration where we are meeting young designers? So what are the best qualities you pay attention to?
Very much what I described in this presentation. So the capability of being creative in a feasible, functional way. So we don't necessarily need a fantastic artist who does spaceships. We need a willingful, promising man or woman who wants to understand that, in our case, because in other cases maybe it's different, but from our company, it's been set since 1968 to mix shape and functionality, which makes innovation, as I said, the details. But it's important for me to see people who understand that what they are thinking can one day be transformed into something real. So the technical competences, the materials, the understanding of budgets, the fact that companies have budgets is very important for us. It's very important. And then obviously traditional things that you look for in people, which are capability of working in teams, capability of working under pressure. But I think for the type of service that we provide, it's very important for them to understand all the aspects of the design, not only the creative part.
Okay. Are there questions? Come on, don't be shy, because you are an important studio, so obviously they are quite...
No.
You impress them too much. Don't be shy, students.
There's one thing I want to add. I want to make clear that I'm saying that I'm not saying that people don't have to be creative and dreamers and innovative. I'm saying that they need to be creative, they need to be innovative, they need to be dreamers, but always with an eye into the fact that their dreams can come true.
Yeah, but I think they are quite familiar to this concept, because I mean, for what is my understanding, so I can talk about the Polytechnic of Milan and for the academy and for the Arab University, where I teach, I stress the point that one has to be creative, but not forgetting that you have to produce and realize that, and in a certain manner also consider the cost effect. But Giulia is still there. Come on, Giulia.
Yes, sorry. Another question came up in my mind. And how important it is to participate in contests? Sorry. In contests, in your opinion?
Do you participate to contests, to big contests, obviously?
Yeah.
In architecture, it's very important because the biggest projects are in contests. The big problem is that to participate in contests, you need to have enough people to develop the project that is necessary for the contest. If you have a lot of work not coming necessarily from contests, the problem is you would have to interrupt that work to move people who are working on possibly a paid work to that contest. And it's difficult because of what we were saying before. So the fact that everybody wants projects to be developed for tomorrow. But competition is a very important element for designers, for studios. We tend to participate in architecture to 1 or 2 contests, no more, a year, because we have that capability. Because we have that capability. The choice was not to make this become a huge company, because in keeping it small, we have the involvement of our owners, which is very important, and it's easier for us to manage it, honestly, and also with respect to the client. So I think it's important. I wish we could do more, but I have nothing against it. It certainly stimulates the idea of being top-notch, because competition keeps us alive.
Yes, one point is related to the fact that it's quite common in architecture. Regarding design, the point is that lots of companies are using the contest as a mean to get good ideas at a low cost. So that's the point. So my suggestion generally is the fact to how can I say, look at the contest that they are participating as students, because otherwise they are spending a lot of energy just making gifts to companies. That's the point. So contests are important. There are studios that became famous participating to a lot of contests, but I mean, take in consideration what are the contests you are participating to, because that's the point. So I guess that was the point of Giulia.
Yeah, that's true.
I totally agree with that. I could not be more politically correct. You need to beware. You need to beware from the contest. Architecture-wise, big contests, you are quite sure that they need it. We don't participate to contests in design. Our clients participate to contests. Think about, for example, the train industry. If you need to supply a set of trains to a government, and we do the design part, but the design part is paid for. It becomes part of their budget of participation to that contest. It's very risky to give your material, your innovation, your intellectual property, your talent to other people not being paid, and once they have it, they have it. I mean,
yeah,
it's like patents. Patents are nice, but they are very easily deviated.
Work around.
okay, thank you.
So how do you find clients at this point? I know it's quite strategical, but
well, the advantage we have is that we manage to establish long-term collaborations with clients who have appreciated our services. So Hitachi, Stadler, Italgas, Same, Sony. We have long-term collaborations with these, and they are big companies which have plenty of work. So it generally comes automatically. And then we do what anybody else would do. We have Nicolò there, who takes his laptop and his backpack, and he calls and writes around, and he says, can I pay you a visit? And he goes there. Same thing I do, and I have been doing for years now. And a very traditional way. It's so we have, as I said, the advantage of having established clients which doesn't have to make you rest because things happen. And then we try to get in touch with different companies all the time.
Okay.
One thing we tend to do, and this for me is very important, is we tend not to work with two different clients of the same sector at the same time, even though we don't have exclusivity agreements. If we work for SAME, we are not going to work with John Deere.
Yeah, there is a matter of gentleman agreement. I mean, so I appreciate it. There's a question. So they want your advice from your experience working in 3D model. I don't know if it is the physical model. Do you mean physical model or 3D CAD model? Anyway, both. What is it important to work with the 3D model, physically
Yes,
speaking?
it's vital. It's vital. We work in the industrial design division. We generally work with Alias or Rhino. In the architecture division, we work with 3D Max or with Rhino as well. And it's vital. Yes, it gives you a very, very important phase of that project to be developed. Yes, we work a lot with 3D.
Yes, in fact, you mentioned before, what I appreciated is the fact that because sometimes students, once again, they think that the physical models are over. So you need the physical model. So I appreciate the fact that you focus the point that even if a phase is based on the 3D model, either with Rhino or 3D Studio Max, but it is also important, the physical phase, because as we are not digital, so we have to manage and consider the physical aspects.
Yep, absolutely. It's really a fundamental part of our work. We need to see things with our eyes, not in a small screen. Look, we have a virtual reality center, which is a screen 8 meters by 3. So you could actually project on the screen the 3D of an object in full scale, but it's not the same thing. You need, and you can do it in the light materials, you can do it in styrofoam, you can do it in bad wood, you can do it in whatever you will need, but it's really important. It's really important. And we try to push as much as we can. I mean, a model is important already, but if it's possible, we try to push as much as we can on having in full scale. Because, for example, in the car business, they are working a lot on 1 to 4 models, 1 to 6 models, but it's not the same thing. And the difference in costs in terms of what the whole project of that car being put on the market is going to cost is ridiculous. So we try to push as much as we can on this. And I have to say, it's sad that today not many companies understand this.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, I totally agree with you. The point is that the physical model sometimes is perceived by students as something which is old style, but that's not the case. We need physical model because we are physical. So we as a human being, we are not digital. So, Ionescu, Petronella, go ahead. So switch on microphone, okay.
Hi. Have you ever exhibited a prototype for EICMA?
A prototype?
Okay.
Yes, or I don't know.
That's
model.
a curious question. EICMA, you mean the fair of motorcycle and bicycle?
Yeah.
Okay. Have you ever been to EICMA?
We have been to EICMA many times. We love going to EICMA.
Okay.
You mean if you ever designed a motorbike?
Yeah, I love moto and
So maybe the real question is, please, tell some few words regarding the Moto Guzzi, because you shown the Moto Guzzi.
I can't.
Okay.
We worked among the many collaborations we did. We even had a small collaboration with the Piaggio Group. Piaggio Group has a fantastic design center led by a fantastic designer. And they commissioned us a series of studies on a scooter and on a Moto Guzzi bike. And then they chose one. We don't think it's ever going to go to production, because many times companies do this. They do research. So they commission you with a research just to see a different design point of view, which not necessarily they already have in their mind to produce. So this is what happened with us with Piaggio, but it happened to us in the past with Kawasaki. We have worked 30 years ago we worked with Bimota. So yes, we did have experience in the motorbike world. Yes.
Okay. Thank you for the question. There's another question by Rawand. So what are the main difficulties you faced in Asia? Rawand is from the Arab American University. So the meaning is, how do you face the cultural differences in the surrounding nature?
Well, first of all, you need to...
Sorry, if Rawad, you can switch on your web camera, so let us see you. Or maybe she has problem with the... Okay. Okay. Hi.
Hello. Hello. Well, first of all, it might seem stupid to say, but you need to have a good mentality to adapt to different cultures, which to me is a pleasure. I love discovering different cultures. Then many times you face the fact that they are totally different from yours, which is good, because having a world which is different is fantastic. And then you have them help you in a certain sense, because I think the communication, I mean, our work is not going to a client in China or in India or in Russia or in Australia and telling him, okay, this is the work you need. Okay, I'll see you in 3 weeks. It doesn't work that way. It's a continuous interchange of ideas, of thoughts, of directions, of things that come up to your mind. And this gives you the grasp of culture. Technically speaking, what you generally do is you divide the work into different phases. What we call concept research, which is the initial phase, we are always going to do a work which is delivered in many different proposals, design proposals, because this is going to give you what, after those design proposals, you get together with the client and you decide where they want to go in terms of direction. Generally, the design proposals are developed in different directions, okay? So they can be cultural, they can be technological, they can be economic. But when you get together after that first concept phase development, you get to understand more about direction, which that specific client really wants. And in that case, he can add a part of that culture that he has to the work you're doing. And then, last but not least, after a while that you start working in a specific culture, you tend to, understand and make those traits that they like yours. So it's also a question of experience. For example, we never did a work in India. If we were to work in India, I think that process of accumulating their culture would be something difficult for us, totally new. In China, for example, when I first went and they said we want the Chinese traits, it was difficult for me. Then I went 100 times And now it's much easier. Now I almost speak their same language.
Yeah, almost Chinese.
Almost.
One half. Are you satisfied by the answer, Rawad? Is because obviously
Yes, thank you.
they do have the opposite. They have to face the opposite aspect because as students, they have to face the European culture, and that's true for Arabian. That's true for Chinese students, and so on and so forth. So the diversity is a matter of richness, and students like you combining the different cultures are very welcome in studios because you incorporate different knowledges. So I mean what you are learning today is very important for your future work because you will be I mean at that time you will be used to manage and work around different cultures. So it's very important to be international. Okay, are there other questions, students? Or maybe Nicolò wants to. Can I introduce Nicolò Serra, which is the communication part of the studio?
Hello, everybody. So, thank you very much for this presentation to Goffredo Baduini. And it's always a pleasure to listen to this wonderful company. I work in Giugiaro Architettura for 3.5 years now, and it's a very challenging work because, as Goffredo is saying, we work with different culture and different companies, from the railway sector to the airplane to the product design. So it's very challenging for me to work for this company. It's wonderful because they give me the opportunity to understand the design 360 degrees, and working in the commercial department is always very challenging because it's important to discover new context and new culture. I want to remember that Goffredo is saying the designer has to be polyhedric, international, and pragmatic, but also the manager and the business department has to be polyhedric, international, and pragmatic too.
Yes, yeah. I mean, I agree. I mean, in the students that know me know that I'm quite strange as a designer because I spent my first 13 years in finance. I've been working for JP Morgan, so I'm quite familiar to the team building important aspect. I mean, how team building is important for making project. But that's not always the case in the design world, because sometimes designers are self-centrated. That's not true for if we talk about Giugiaro, because he has a company approach. I mean, so the team building is very important. And the fact that there's a general manager managing the studio gives you students the impression, the flavor of what important is to build a good team, not just being a signature or a self-man studio. So it is important to share the abilities, and I appreciate the fact that Goffredo underlined the fact that for a manager is very important to look for a good person, good, I mean, people having great abilities, because it's not just a matter of what you are able to do, but what is important is what the team is able to do. I mean, but just big design studios has this mindset, which is very, very important. So what about you, students? Any other question? Because you know that, so I stress the point that it is very uncommon to have the possibility to meet that kind of a person. People working with Same and Itachi and so on. So don't be shy, because you are here to learn, so you can ask almost whatever you want.
No money, eh?
No money. I would ask you, where can I send my CV if I were you, students?
Well, we always receive them. We have a specific info email
Okay.
website, and we receive quite a deal. Yeah.
Okay. So send everybody send CV to the Giugiaro Architecture. No, it's 2:30, so it's time to end this wonderful meeting. So thank you, you both, Goffredo
Thank you.
Baduini, and thank you to Nicolò Serra for the organizational part of this meeting. Thank you both for your time. And it was
Thank you.
a pleasure, and thank you for your gift, because it's a gift that you made to ADI and to students trying to share your experiences.
No, thanks to you for the invitation, and thanks to all the students. I hope I wasn't too boring, but I try to give them a glimpse of what, because one thing is what what you think of what is a company is going to be when you are studying. Each one of us passed through it. So when I was a student, I thought, what's the company going to be? Is it going to be the same as in university now? And then it's completely different, but it's very challenging. It's very nice. And the fact that the discipline that you have chosen is nice, because every day is a new discovery for a different project. So it's very nice.
Thank you again. Thank you, students. And last words, I will use the words of Steve Jobs that were defined in a university meeting. So to finish this meeting, I will say, stay hungry, stay foolish, but most of all, be mad. Thank you to all.
Bye-bye.
Enjoy your
Thank you.
afternoon.
Bye.
Ciao.
Bye.
Bye.